I'm standing between all of you and lunch, so we'll keep this snappy. But we've got a great panel. Thank you so much for doing the introductions. I think, as you would have all got a sense, this is a wonderful set of people with some very diverse experiences. So we'll, I hope that over the next 30, 40 minutes, we'll get through some interesting observations. So I know we've been talking about omnichannel and creating new experiences for consumers through the day-to-day. This is something that has been a bit of a buzzword, I would say, at least for the last 10 years that I've been following this space. I think we've all been talking about omnichannel, multi-channel. There are various terms that are floating around. But I think we'd all agree that over the last couple of years, at least, there's been a significant shift in terms of how brands, platforms, and the entire enabling ecosystem thinks about the space. I would sort of hazard a guess and say there's probably three things at least that have driven that. I think one is the fact that consumers are now that much more willing to both discover as well as experience and then buy things online and in multiple channels. I think there's been a lot of technology innovation around various components of the process of creating seamless consumer experiences. And I would also, I think especially from an India perspective, there's been a lot that's happened in terms of the enabling infrastructure, whether it is logistics, inventory management, some of these other elements that are really critical to delivering quality omni-channel experiences. And I think all of that has therefore come together to set the stage for a lot of the innovation that we're seeing. So I'd love to divide this into three big parts. Number one is just get a sense of what each of your brands and from your vantage points, you're all approaching this from different perspectives. What are you seeing as the big shift over the last couple of years? What is the role of different channels for your respective brands? And for some of the more B2B oriented perspectives, I'd love to understand also what the biggest enabling innovations are that you've seen happen. I think that's question one. Number two is, or section two is, we as brands are orchestrating this journey, what are the biggest changes that they've had to undertake? And this could be from the perspective of supply chain technology, crafting new seamless consumer experiences. And then finally, section three, we know that this is all still work in progress. I mean, there's a lot of excitement around omnichannel, but it still is only a fraction of total consumer journeys. I'll come to you on that, Arvind, in a bit. But there is a lot of headroom for further growth. So what are some of the big unsolved questions or the key areas that your respective companies are still working on in this space? So that's, a lot of ground to cover. So we'll keep it quick and snappy, but I'm sure that again, we'll have a wonderful set of perspectives coming in. I'll just start maybe with you, Arvind, if you could just kick us off. What are you seeing in terms of omni-channel innovation from brands globally? What should we be thinking about as being sort of the benchmarks, best-in-class performance, and so on? Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Radhika. Hello, everyone. So essentially what I would do is maybe level set the ground based on omni-channel experience and clarify that omni-channel and multi-channel, they're two separate things. So let's take an example, and I might refer that throughout the discussion. So for instance, if let's say one of you is actually on Fashmates platform and browsing through various styles, you like a dress that's really nice and you say, okay, I want to actually, this is something that I like and you want to purchase. You click on that, and that takes you as a consumer, that takes you to the brand page that's on Fashmates, where what you do is you look at the reviews, you look at the stylist view about the product, and you learn about, from the fellow shoppers, what they have given and all that. So you have a good understanding of the product. Now, because this is a shoppable image, you click on it again, it takes you now to the brands page, brand detail, brand or retailer's product detail page. Now there, you have already done your work and you're, okay, you're ready to purchase. Now, unfortunately, you don't have, or the brand or retailer at that point doesn't have the appropriate dress or the size of that dress for you. So what happens now, right? In normal circumstances, now you have a lost customer. Now with omnichannel, what's going to happen is that now you have, let's say, built in I'm going to take a very simple example, a digital chatbot, where you basically were able to connect on that product detail page with that chatbot and said, oh, this size. You were able to connect with a person from brand who's looking at and saying, oh, sorry, we don't have this online, but let me check for you. Do we have somewhere near wherever you are at one of our offline stores? Unfortunately, now this person or the brand representative were able to find that, oh yes, there is actually a store nearby that has your size. Let me do this. Let me reserve that size for you so you can actually go there and you can purchase, or we can deliver it to you. So now the customer is actually, this is your chat, phone, whatever you want to use it, but this is that experience where you are now getting ahead, and from that discovery, you are making that customer to be able to actually purchase. Now what happens? Customer is, okay, I will go to the nearest store. They go to the nearest store, there is a reserved size, they pick that, and they're happy, they're satisfied. The chances are, while they are in store, they might actually like something else, and then they purchase. So what happened is, from the time they discovered the product on Fashmates, in this case, could be anywhere, and the requirement was fulfilled, you actually were able to convert that shopper or prospective shopper into actual shopper. And what led you do that was actually the omni-channel experience, or the end-to-end seamless experience where you are actually guiding the customer or the shopper throughout their journey. In multi-channel, what happens is that, you have actually all these channels, the presence, but they are not integrated together. So this is where the omni-channel represents basically the value add that a brand could have while deploying it, that you could convert your shopper, prospective shopper, to a buyer. Absolutely. So that we have seen this. I mean, in terms of data, and not to sound like a data buff, but when we look at, Harvard did a study on this, and today, less than 20% of the brand are actually getting into this omni-channel experience. And while they're doing some sort of it, right, it's also not that they are doing it, they're trying to, it's an aspiration, but still only 20% of them are doing it. Some sort of omni-channel. There's another data point. On the other side, more than 90% of us as a shopper or as a consumer, we want that experience. We don't want to discover something, like something, and at the end of the day, we're not able to purchase it. So that's, statistics is about 90%. So clearly there is a huge gap, and then the brand needs to, or retailer needs to meet customer there. Now, of course, we can discuss further, but I'm going to take a pause here and see if anyone else has to add something.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that. Very helpful. I'll maybe bring in Satish at this point, because you've obviously got a network of stores. I'd love to understand, as you look at it from H&M's perspective, I don't know if you can share, what percentage of consumer journeys end up being omni-channel today for you, and what are some of the big interesting insights for you as you've gone through this journey for H&M?
For us, in H&M, we've been operating in about 75 countries where we have store presence, close to about 4,800 stores, and we're in 54 online markets. And the experiences that our customer have in these markets are quite interesting. And when we look at our customer and work through the customer journey, the store represents a very important aspect of the customer experience itself, right? And using the data that we have in terms of the work that's gone on that front, we're able to actually track the customer and help them make those choices. And what we've seen change in the last couple of years is customers are coming to the store, but more for experiences that they're not able to get on the screen. Right? And therefore, we've seen a change in that pattern, and we've been able to make that an integrated experience across all these markets.
So, I want to pick up on that thread. Are you actually suggesting that there are more people who are now, let's say, discovering your products online first and then coming into the store, or is it still mixed?
It's a combination of both. We do have solutions which people can actually walk into a store, understand what's available in the store using their app, and be able to find the particular product. And there are also people who have been very clear about what they want, right? And they make those decisions online, and they come in and pick up at the store, largely because they want experiences, like I said, beyond the screen. And that's what we've been able to enable using our technology backbone of that.
Got it. And since you've got almost a common reference point with H&M across multiple markets, where would you place India in that context?
I think the Indian journey has been quite similar to our global journeys, and the customers here have similar preferences of having their expectations being met online as well as offline. And when India, we've got presence both on our brand.com as well as on marketplace like Myntra. So we've seen the experiences of our customers quite similar across the world as well.
Got it. Vipul, maybe you might have an interesting counter experience. Given the fact that most consumers would have experienced Nykaa and Nykaa fashion online first. What does omnichannel mean for you? And are there specific consumers categories that you're looking to target with a more offline experience?
Thanks, Radhika. So you're right that Nykaa is our first online, and it provides two things to us. One is the data tells us where to open the stores. We have about 100 stores which are operational now, and what to keep in it. So we have mix of brands. So each of the markets have nuance towards, who would buy a Line and who would buy Bobby Brown, in what proportion can be decided on, how we see sales coming from that region. I think that's the first part. The second part is that when consumer walks in and we ask them, are you registered? Do you buy online? Some of them say yes, and they provide us a phone number. Through that phone number, there is a history. And hence we can ask them that, how did it do to you? Did the serum work? Did that product work? And then there is a conversation which starts from there, and then you can make a recommendation. I think the third part is that if they have not come online with us, we will, and when we do the billing, we can ask them again the phone number or an email ID, and through that we start to then communicate to them that the product which you have bought can be used in this fashion. So Nykaa generates significant amount of educational content. In Indian context, there is always a doubt: is this product right? And do I know how to use it? Beauty as a space is a new space. So then the interaction starts with the consumer, and chances are that they will come back. I think this is where Nykaa is, and I also think that we have only covered a very, very small distance. I'm rather intrigued by what other people have done or what other sectors have done. So I was going through an example where you go to buy a furniture, you click a picture, and then you can superimpose it on your home. And you can do it online, you can do it in the store. You can pick up a color and do a coloring in your home, so Asian Paints provides that. So amount of innovation which has happened in the spaces which are heavy on inventory and heavy on cost, I think is far more than what has happened in a smaller thing, which is a choti si bottle of, let's say, a perfume. And I think as a lifestyle industry, there is lots for us to learn as what other industries have done, and can we bring it on board into the lifestyle industry.
That's very interesting. But if you look specifically at lifestyle in particular, what are some of, let's say, the more interesting use cases that you see for omnichannel? So obviously just selling more to consumer across touchpoints is one, but I think I picked up something around assisted selling when you were talking about, for instance, saying, I have your number, I know your history, so therefore here's probably the kind of product that would work for you. What are those, most interesting use cases that you're pursuing?
Some of the, obvious use cases are, you can show more products, so you can make faster deliveries because the store will deliver. They're all I think, the first stage of it. About 10 years back, it was thought that the role of Omni is actually to do this, which is ensure कि वो consumer को 42 size का shirt नहीं मिला, so we have found a way to deliver it to his home. And that is all. And a lot of matrices in the organizations I worked for were measured कि अभी 5% है कि 7%. My sense is that Omni has moved from that place to a new place where people are saying, can I make a better choice in the store by using tech, and then that product can get delivered to me at home. So one of the case in point is that all bespoke businesses where I may want to buy a specific kind of a shirt or a trouser with a specific fit. So about a decade back, we started to do this in Vanusen. I was part of Vanusen team, where there is a scanner, you can scan the people, and you will make a recommendation that actually you need a larger collar because you have a thicker neck and you have a shorter hand, so you need a smaller sleeve. And through that, he can pick up to choose, that is, does he want a check or a stripe? And then that will get delivered at home. So my sense is that from enabling supply to actually facilitating right kind of buying in the store is what Omni has moved towards.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I think we'll continue to see a lot more of that kind of evolution over the next few years. I want to toss it to Gurukeerthi now. In the context of your category, for example, which is more high-value purchase, CaratLane is in that space. What is I'll divide my question into two parts. How are you seeing omnichannel play out in your category? And specifically, what is the role of technology in creating the enabling conditions for consumers to trust some of these omni experiences?
Sure. Thanks for the question. See, CaratLane, I think it's probably one of the oldest, brand in this forum that, the panelists were sitting here. We started way back in 2008. And the only thing that we had in our mind was just follow the consumers. So, because at that point in time, there were a lot of jewelry showrooms out there. And then the only disruption that was thought about is internet is coming on. So why not open up a showroom? And it was started by a jeweler who is my co-founder also. In 2012, we realized in 4 years that consumers still want to do a touch and feel. So why not open an experience center? Because the sheer reason why online brand exists is because to avoid the large inventory cost and do not want to spend on the retail. And how do you transfer that savings that you get on the inventory cost as well as the retail location cost into the consumers? So you go on a very transparent mode, low cost mode, and you'll be able to pass on that benefits. And opening up an experience store defeats the purpose. So we invented an approach of just having the showroom as a very small experience center, maybe about 600, 700 square feet. So, and that today expanded into about 1,200, 1,500, 800 also today. But that's one part of it. And then we innovated on the try at home. We still felt that jewelry is bought in home settings. So how do you take products to the consumer? So it's a new channel. And just like how earlier Eureka folks used to take the vacuum cleaners to the home, right? That's how, and the jewelry setting is also such that people are encouraging such a behavior. So families want to buy it in groups, so we went there. What we saw in the last 2 years is there is an interesting problem. The consumers are seeing that they don't want to come into the showroom. At the same time, they don't want to buy it without seeing the product, but they don't want, and still they want to talk to somebody. How do you solve all this problem? We came up with something called CaratLane Live Experience, where there'll be somebody sitting behind the camera and who will be actually wearing the jewelry and showing how it looks like, what's the size and so on. So it's actually a human being. It's not another AI bot or a model that is wearing, or not even your picture that is wearing, because still the AR experience is not so good for seeing the actual product in its beauty. So we have somebody do that. So that's something which we created in the last 2 years and being able to do that. So for us, a lot of discovery happens online, and about 80% of the orders today or walk-ins that happens into the showroom is online influenced. So we just look at this part. We don't even now categorize this online, offline anymore. So it's about a single omni business, and where people start and where they end up, accordingly we actually tailor the product pitch or the sales pitch that happens. The other challenge that we have seen is reading or ability to read the consumer insights, right? We don't have Abhishek Acharya sitting to do that. And what's the next best thing is to follow the consumer journey, what they do on the website or on the apps or in the showroom. All of that is being tracked to see what is their interest and pitch at the right time in their life occasions, whether it's their anniversaries or any other gifting occasions. Today, 50% of our orders are for gifting purpose. And we just started thinking about how do we start solving that emotional need of the customer. So then a lot of things that we are coming up with that help in the gifting scenario. And here we are not in the jewelry space anymore. You are actually competing against a vacation or a travel. So anything that's got to do about a 25,000 share of the wallet, rupees in the share of the wallet is now is our competitor to deal with it. So the journey goes on. We still continue to do a lot of that.
That's absolutely fascinating, and so many threads to pull on there, but I'll pick up a couple. You said 80% of walk-ins to the store today are,
Already browsed online.
have already browsed online. How? Very basic question. How do you even establish that? I mean, how are you able to tie the walk-in to the store to somebody who's browsed your site?
We have a store check-in and walk-in because that's something which is very natural these days for consumers to come in, because there are many things we'll be able to advise or suggest to the customers based on their past interactions with us. And there is also a loyalty program for which they need to be able to check in. And combining both of this, we're able to figure out that they have already actually come online, they have seen it, and we know the kind of products that they have browsed also. And that helps in shortlisting it. And we, in fact, if we can go a step further, we are able to even, if they are able to book online or reserve the product online, we'll be able to fetch it from the nearby stores also. So today, the entire model is distributed, logistics also that's happening in the business. It's not a single or a dual supply chain center anymore. Every one of these 150 showrooms that we have is now a point of presence where dispatches can happen, and people can book online, they can just pick it up from there, and we fulfill the need of the consumers even if they are not in the same location. Dispatches can happen from, let's say, Chennai to even a Hyderabad or a Gorakhpur, wherever it is, wherever the customers are browsing from. So the nearest inventory is what we look at first. If not, we keep going one level further and then get it dispatched.
Got it. It's very helpful. The other question, and you sort of alluded to this, is there's almost two choices that, or two paths one could go down when you think about things like assisted selling. You could either have an individual, sales assistant in the store who's, actually wearing the jewelry, for instance, or more, let's call it AI-powered interventions, which could be, recommendation bots, different things. What has been your experience? Because it sounds like you've gone down one path, but have you experimented with various routes, and what's the conclusion you've come to?
So we are the first one back in 2015, launched the virtual try-on for earrings. We did it in the apps, Android and the iOS app. The experience has been good, but it is still short of exhibiting the beauty of the jewelry as a product, because you are talking about a very small product, and usually the catalog is what all of these e-commerce players are selling, right? The beauty is on the images that you see on the website and apps, but in reality, their size matters and they feel very different about it. So with that experience, we felt that, and back then the size of the app used to be bloated, and it was actually now fighting against the real estate within the mobile devices itself. So we actually shrunk that model and we said, let's go with a model where we'll be able to have some person trying it out rather than the other approach. And we still feel that while the devices are capable of doing the AR and VR, the 2D rendering or the 3D rendering is not actually coming out in their entirety. Because there is a lot of friction and fluctuation in the way the product looks on the individual, we feel that it actually determines the purchase behavior itself. So we're waiting for the right solution to do that. And with so many new capabilities like 5G might be one option, or going with a better try-on solution can be a option in the space.
Got it. Very helpful. Maybe Karthik, I'll pull you in at this point. You've obviously worked with a number of different brands, and one could argue, many customer experience leaders. As you think about, let's say, the innovations that brands are doing to actually scale up, great consumer experiences, and using, let's say, AI and automation to do that, what are some of the best examples that you've seen?
Thanks, Radhika. Great to be here. So like you said, I think we at Freshworks, we've been incredibly fortunate to have had front row seats, especially the last couple of years, to witness all the innovation and the craziness, and to partner with a lot of brands, some of them on this panel as well, right? So a few key things that emerge is, obviously we're seeing the blurring of lines between physical and digital, what my good friend Guru calls phygital. right? And what we're also seeing is we're seeing the blurring of lines between what a customer support agent is expected to do and what a sales agent is supposed to do, and how do we equip them with the right kind of information, the right kind of insights to make meaningful decisions, offer contextual, compelling engagement to the customer. One big focus area for brands is also the unified view of the customer. How do you ensure a seamless journey across for the customer from acquisition to activation to engagement to advocacy, right? And the investments that in tech that organizations are doing, right from building a customer data platform to having end-to-end supply chain visibility systems to reward tech, loyalty tech, and a lot of these aspects. And we're starting to see a lot of these brands invest very heavily in, of course, the AI, ML, NLP, multilingual. India is a supremely heterogeneous market, right? So how do you get to the last user? How do you ensure that you're personalizing for the last user, right? And we're seeing some great innovation happening on that front in India.
And if you mentioned a lot of different threads, but is there a specific set of areas where you're seeing, for instance, the most innovation that's happening? Is it in recognizing that consumer across multiple touch points or solving some of the back-end problems? Where are you seeing most?
I think it's that unified view of the customer that I think a lot of organizations are doubling down on, and partners like us are looking at this 360-degree view of the customer different ways, right? Some of them are doing it through acquisition. Some of them are looking at building that one platform, right, from acquisition to advocacy. This is where the biggest focus area is, because customers want that one unified platform and want to work with that one partner to ensure that the end-to-end journey is seamless and contextual and compelling.
Got it. Nishant, you actually work with a whole suite of insurgent brands. As you think about crafting some of these omnichannel experiences for your consumers, both from a marketing perspective as well as in creating more personalized touch points for consumers pre-purchase, what are you seeing as the most interesting things that you've innovated on over the last few years?
Sure. Thank you, Radhika. Great to be here. Just let me begin with, today's consumers are spoiled for choices. There are choices available in plenty. And the margin or the room for error is bare minimum. It's at threshold. Today's consumer, as we speak, I term it as a go through this heads down, concept, where, most of the time consumers are, occupied watching their mobile phones. When we started our journey, we were very, very conscious saying that, we were not in the game of creating a app or going the, direct route. Largely, it was creating a brand, which can start, with the retail brick and mortar store, where there's a certain amount of sanctity comes and where consumers would start believing into what we are trying to offer. And that was, the thumb rule where we started our journey. Over the years, yes, we have, moduled ourselves as well. And now we are, doing, following a cohesive path where we are reaching out to consumers through, an approach which is comprehensive. We're not leaving out any modules which are left unturned. But, having said that, consumer experience plays a very, very critical and important role for, for a customer journey to, from the time he is aware of our brand to convert and to ensure that he's retained. We have worked hard enough. I mean, all the other panelists have mentioned, talking about the data points which are available. I think same here, at WROGN, we have ensured that we try and study each aspect of the consumer's journey, whether he's interacting with, with our ads or, going through, our offline retail store. We try and map and try and retarget that, irrespective of where the conversion comes from. It's important that we cater to the consumer, what the consumer is looking at, because that's what is important right now, given that all brands, everyone is, working hard enough for that consumer's attention. And I think that's something we need to be very, very cognizant of. We need to ensure that we need to communicate to the consumer in the form and art the consumer wants to, believe in. So that's what we're looking at doing. So.
Got it. And is there some, let's say, metric or measure of how much of your communication is today personalized based on your understanding of at least what cohort a consumer belongs to and so on?
As we speak, we we were insignificant. It was largely, cookie driven. And we have also, after Google made announcement and Facebook made announcement, we have also tried driving out of it, going more into organic kind of content, which leads seamless, and which it connects with the consumer at large. You would have, all of us would have, witnessed some of the other memes. It's a very, very simple way of connecting to the audience at large, but we've tried keeping it very organic, something where a consumer connects and sees reality instead of faking it out. So we've tried making things, something which is seamless, something which is real, and that's what we are encapsulating. Currently, we are at 60% mark is what I would say. But yeah, I mean, it's a constant journey. We're looking to improve and improvise, but that's the endeavor, and that's what we're striving.
Yeah, 60% is very impressive. So great to hear that. Utkrish, finally, everyone's, I think, followed the Meesho journey with great interest over the last few years. I think for you, what I'd love to understand is more, you've obviously, you started with the whole reseller social commerce model, made a little bit more of a pivot to now broad-based e-commerce. What are you seeing as, let's say, the most interesting new areas of now, how Meesho and other companies are engaging with users, some of maybe the first time to e-commerce kind of buyers that are now coming into the market?
Great. Thanks, Radhika, and great to be here. Yes, we have seen this journey from social commerce to e-commerce, and how we have evolved from an entrepreneur-heavy platform and going direct to consumers. And we have leveraged a lot of what we have learned in our social commerce days into building Meesho of today. And just to give you some data points, why new to e-commerce users are going to play a very significant role in how the TAM of online commerce shapes up. Still 600 odd million people on WhatsApp, not more than 100 million online shoppers. And the challenges that plague them, even though these users have smartphones, they are watching YouTube, they are probably on WhatsApp. First and foremost is trust. How do you solve for trust? I mean, of course, with a reselling, with an entrepreneur-heavy model, someone in their community, someone in their neighborhood was always solving for trust and distribution. But as these new to e-commerce users get exposed to more brands, get exposed to more platforms, form factor plays a very important role. Size of the app that one has to install. I mean, these smartphones are very low-end smartphones. And your app has to be customized in a way that it doesn't eat into a lot of memory space that they have. Also, the entire experience on the app, it has to be very easy for a user to comprehend and understand. Vernaculars going into regional languages is now a table stake to get to these consumers. And more importantly, what we are also seeing in order to drive growth of these new to e-commerce users, the traditional means of paid marketing are not going to work. Influencer channels are going to play a very critical role on how you play out your brands, how you reach to them. And just adding on some of the learnings from the social commerce days, right? What we have also understood that it's not just about the product market fit. When you go to these new users, it's also the product channel fit, right? And not all products are meant for all channels. And we have seen, while we have helped our sellers and brands reach into these tiers, brands who have understood the channel dynamics, brands who have understood how the pricing points for new to e-commerce users matter a lot more, when you are talking about an entrepreneur-driven setup, how margins play a very critical role. Some of these brands have succeeded more, some of these sellers, some of these categories have succeeded more, whereas other categories have still continued to be more search heavy, right? So just at the outset, the distribution here has more of a power law where some sellers, some brands tend to over-index on one channel versus the others. Yeah.
I think it's very helpful. I'd love to now just switch the questioning a little bit. We've heard a lot of great stories of the innovations that your respective companies are working on. But we do recognize that for most companies, the penetration of truly omni-channel journeys is still relatively low. So I'd love to get a quick sense from everyone, maybe just a minute. on what are the biggest, let's say, changes you've had to make to your respective organizations. Could be from a supply chain, tech, org structure standpoint. And what do you think is, the one or two sets of problems that you're working on that are particularly meaningful? And maybe Satish, I'll just start with you from H&M.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I think the changes that needed to be done are pretty much across all spectrums of the business processes. And if you really look at one area which I think most companies would be struggling with, especially with the omnichannel and the customer preference having changed from try and buy to buy and try, is the entire issue of reverse logistics and returns. Right? And that's an expensive proposition. Right? And I'll give you an example. I was in the US last week, and I went to one of the outdoor stores. Typically, these rock climbing shoes that I buy are ridiculously expensive at $180. But the one that was there was at $80, and I asked them, I said, how come it's so less? They said the customer bought it online, they returned it in the store. We don't typically sell these in the store, but we had to take it in. And it's almost like a liquidation kind of thing. And somebody bears that $100, right? And it's in this case the company which is doing it. And we've seen this, in probably almost all the companies where reverse logistics is something that needs to be addressed and probably solved for in a significant way.
Yeah, agree. I think various people will resonate with that. Vipul, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I think two challenges which we faced, and I'm sure that a lot of other companies might be facing, is the first a discounted and undiscounted, non-discounted model. In apparel space, if you are in online, you have huge discounts. And consumers have become habitual of buying things at half the price. Retail, you can't do it. The cost of retail is so high that you would not want to create incremental business at a discount. And hence, a lot of solutions emerge, but I personally think they're suboptimal. One of the solutions, you create different lines for them. There is an e-commerce line and there is a physical retail line. Or another option is that India has started to now do the markdowns. Earlier, there only used to be end of season sale. Now you would say that after a month I'll mark down by 10%, after 2 months 20, 30%, and so on and so forth. A new phenomena has emerged, which is this, sales pre-festive. So now we started to tell people that while it's Diwali, we have always sold goods at the first price in Diwali, but now we want to sell goods at a much deeper discount than usual. So that completely disrupts the whole cycle. So that's challenge number one. And I personally think it's suboptimally solved by various things which brand do. I think the second challenge is that how do you manage the inventory and where does it sit? And does it become seamless? I mean, it looks nice to say that I click a button and things happen, but there is a whole lot of logistics which goes behind it. So to be able to create a pool of inventory which is in warehouse, which is available to all the channels. Yes, there aren't too many e-commerce partner or API partners who have this as a capability. And not just that, you are actually extending inventory of a warehouse into each of the stores which are hundreds and thousands in number, right? And then do you have this inventory which is updated, let's say at every 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Otherwise, the order starts to drop. So I think there are two problems. One is, at least in the lifestyle space, discounting and managing inventory in a fashion which does not hinder the consumer experience.
And yeah, both of those are, let's call it, physical goods related. I think some of what Satish spoke about in terms of reverse logistics also falls into that bucket. Karthik, what about creating, let's say, seamless consumer experiences? We've all seen, a number of D2C brands don't have the Amazon type experience. What's holding us back?
So I think the problems that we see some of the organizations that we partner with grapple is essentially making that, it's a classic problem of making that shift from multi-channel to cross-channel to omni-channel, right? Because the way experience has been defined for these different channels are very different. There's a lot of legacy, there's a lot of disjointed systems and processes, and bringing it all together to orchestrate it in a way to make it truly omni-channel is the $1 million or the $1 billion problem to solve for, right? So we are starting to see organizations make big investments in customer data platforms and trying to do the plumbing across various systems to make it work. But like we all discussed and agree, it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to take a while.
I think Gurukeerthi, the CaratLane has made a lot of these investments clearly, in-house and with the right set of partners. What are the biggest problems you're now working on?
So there are two things. One is from a consumer perspective, other one is from an organization perspective. From a consumer perspective, today is a day of instant gratification, right? See, we're having this Zepto type of a problem that we have in most of the brands now. Consumers don't want a longer lead time for dispatchers to get the products, they want it instant. So how do we solve that? For a made-to-order product, which actually takes time for manufacturing, or for the product which is slightly in a different location also. So we are experimenting with multiple things, from 4-hour to 8-hour shipments. How do we make it happen so that the product reaches at the time that they want it also? Most of the gifting occasions are actually time-bound. And if you lose that sale, it is actually also spoiling the sentiment of the customer as well. So that's one problem on logistics side. The other one from an organization perspective, while we all can talk about so much on Omni, right? Finally, end of the day, the consultant or a sales agent or who, in various organizations, there are different terminology to it. For us, the jewelry consultant who sells a product should not compete with each other. They should see it as a seamless experience between an online agent who is selling it as well as the retailer or the sales agent who is selling it. So for them, customer comes first, and that should be the priority in the mindset of the jewelry consultants. And the traditional companies, sales companies, do not have this mindset. These sales agents are actually tuned to think about their commission and incentives, and actually might end up competing with each other and actually doing some harm to the business itself. So that mindset change is what we are working on, and fundamental shifts in the organizational structure, the way incentives are calculated, all of that is happening in order to bring in that habit for the customer.
That's perfect. Nishant, I saw you were nodding, so...
No, I quite agree. I often have this debate where you have a separate online team and offline team, and they would fight out for sales. So I completely agree with what he's saying, and I could completely resonate. But for us, the first and foremost, thing that we are currently focusing on is, while everybody is trying to acquire new customer, we have been completely focusing on ensuring that there is enough and more customer retention, which encapsulates all the points that the panelists have mentioned, whether it is reverse logistics, ensuring that products are there on time, because we have to ensure that once we have acquired a customer, we need to ensure that it is retained, because once he's going to turn his back, he's never going to come back, and it's going to be, whether it is going to be a discount-led model or any other, then we need to constantly see whether we are burning money and trying to acquire him again. So that's where it is. We completely, right now, the focus has been ensuring that there is a customer retention there.
Perfect. Arvind, your Fashmates is solving some of these problems for brands. So what's...
Yeah, it is. Actually, two things I would add besides what's been already discussed, just in the interest of time. We see this opportunities actually, right? So personalization is one thing that's a must-have for omnichannel experience. But then along with personalization, what comes is privacy issues, data privacy issues, PIIs, personally identifiable information. And when we work with brand, we want to ensure, and I think brands and retailers want to ensure that that's basically is pretty tight, right? That's not leaked. So that's an opportunity area of growth. And then the other one is actually more on the consumer side. So it's an experience. What we look at is what we have learned from is that the experience equally plays a role into the seamless journey, right? So it has to be fun when you're shopping for anything, right? And it's more about, it has to be simple. It has to be, the experience is fun, the feel-good aspect. And that's actually really important from a consumer perspective. And as we look at it always, at the end of the day, we all are in some way consumers, right? So I think that's where it resonates and based on some information. So definitely, I think those are the two. And we have seen just from a data perspective that when we do incorporate these things, we do see roughly, over 10%, lifetime value increases by 30% and things like that. So there is definitely a value at having these two opportunities solved.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'll just give the last words to Utkrishta on this, where I think everyone's very keen to know what Meesho is solving next. So what's the big set of things on your agenda?
Sure, as we discussed, getting to the new to e-commerce users is tricky, right? And investments on all fronts, be it personalization, the tastes that users have in different parts of the country, the apparels they wear, the products they buy, they are very different. And a very robust personalization mechanism is needed to engage better with your users on app. And like other fellow panelists have pointed out, we've been extensively working with our third-party logistics partners to reach out to those pin codes that were not even serviced till now, right? And it is more of a flywheel effect. As the demand starts to come in, it becomes more viable to our partners to open up these centers and start delivering to users in Bharat, right? So ideally, efforts on these both ends are critical, and we continue to move ahead. Thank you. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I mean, I think lots of very interesting takeaways from this conversation. If I were to summarize the ones that, I mean, I think for me, we've been talking about omnichannel more as a means to, think about effectively where sales is coming from. But I think a lot of the panelists here talked about its ability to create new consumer experiences, whether it is via assisted selling or discovery of new products. It's really creating, opening up, new experiences that potentially didn't exist earlier. So I think that's how things change over the next few years. We also obviously then touched upon the fact that a lot of these questions, whether it is with respect to technology, crafting seamless experiences, solving some of the logistics and supply chain problems, or indeed, I think the very important org problems that you brought up in terms of incentives and alignment. There's a long way to go, but I'm sure there's a lot of interesting innovation happening over the next few years as well. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.